All right, it is 49ers quarterback alternate universe time. I know that we've already discussed Jim Harbaugh coaching Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan coaching Brock Purdy, but remember there's another twist here, and it really was brought closer to our attention by some injury news today. But Mac Jones, the guy that so many people thought would be the 49ers pick in 2021 ahead of Trey Lance, is now actually with the 49ers. Unfortunately, he sprained his knee against the Raiders, so he's not going to play. We were this close from getting Mac Jones versus Trey Lance. It is too bad. This is up on the San Francisco Standard right now. Trey Lance, Jim Harbaugh, Brock Purdy, all in one spot. Saturday's big reunion. It's not just those guys, though. It's good. Mac Jones will be at the game. He's not going to play. You'll also see Navarro Bowman, linebackers coach for the Chargers. I mean, there's a reason why I had to go to Kezar Stadium a little bit earlier. But what a time it is to reflect on that 2021 draft. Zach Wilson, he went to the Jets. Justin Fields ended up going to the Bears, but now is with the Jets. And Zach Wilson is with Miami. Trevor Lawrence is the only quarterback out of all those QBs drafted in 2021 who's still with the team that initially got him. That is Jacksonville. It was Lawrence at number 1. It was Zach Wilson at number 2. And Zach, that was somebody who, the discourse was insane back then. People thought, if the 49ers were number 2, all their problems would be solved. Zach Wilson's going to be the truth. As you can see, that was not the case. It didn't work out for Zach Wilson in New York. He's now on his 3rd team. Trey Lance, pictured there next to Brock Purdy, was number 3. That was not the answer to the 49ers' problems, but we're going to go into some of that because I do think that right now, Kyle Shanahan may not want to relitigate it, but there's so many stupid takes regarding this that I feel like relitigating it so we can discuss it. Lance went 3. He's obviously on his 3rd team now as well. Justin Fields and Mac Jones went later in the 1st round. Both of those two guys are no longer with their 1st teams anymore. Mac Jones, team number 3 with the 49ers. Justin Fields, team number 2 for Justin Fields. So wild times indeed. This is the alternate universe of the 49ers quarterback situation. Kyle Shanahan talked a little bit about Trey Lance today. Why don't we use Kyle's audio right here? Let's listen to Kyle talking today from 49ers practice at media availability, because you could tell he didn't want to relitigate 2021, but predictably he was asked about it. So we can take his quote and then we could run with it. Then we could talk about the past, the present, and the future, with the present being really, really interesting given this coming convergence.
Everything away from every situation. I mean, I don't want to sit here and evaluate Trey too much. I think I've done that before, but when I revisit that, we knew where our team was at and we knew where it was going to be the next couple of years. And we were committed to getting a rookie quarterback. We weren't sure that it would be forever, but we thought that was important to contractually with where our team was at in order to keep a good team together. So we knew we were going for a rookie, especially after a veteran left earlier that year. That was an option. So that was more of a plan in that way. Now we can go back to what we thought and everything, which I have no problem doing anytime, but I don't want to sit here and evaluate Trey again. I'm pulling for Trey. I love Trey. One of the best people I've been around, and I really hope it works out for him.
What I wrote up on the San Francisco Standard is that Shanahan obviously still has an affinity for Trey Lance, a personal affinity for Trey Lance. He wishes him the best. He said he's one of the best guys he's been around. Shanahan's not just making that up. They enjoyed Trey in the building. Unfortunately, and this is the part that loses a lot of people, and I don't know why. It's common logic, just following facts that were very heavily documented. Unfortunately, the 49ers had a very narrow developmental window for Trey Lance because they were very, very good as a football team. They needed him to contribute within the first 2 years, and they needed to also turn him into an NFL ready passer, even though he didn't have much college experience. The second that developmental window for Lance got derailed, which was with the finger injury in 2021 during training camp, Kerry Hyder Jr. was with the Raiders that year, and Lance's finger hit off his helmet. The second that happened, the 49ers plan went off the rails. The 49ers deserve criticism for making a plan that had so little margin for error. They don't deserve criticism for taking a big swing. And that's kind of what Kyle Shanahan was getting at in that interview. The salary cap realities that the 49ers had to go through, especially this offseason, are going through as we speak. Those realities were already coming to fruition back in 2021. All the 49ers had to do was look a couple years ahead and say, oh boy, like to keep this together through 2022, 2023, maybe even 2024, we're going to have to cut costs somewhere against the salary cap. We're paying a lot of A-list players. Okay, how about we find a rookie deal quarterback? So, I mean, that saves the most money out of all. They said, we've got a ready-made roster. We need a rookie deal quarterback to fit into this ready-made roster. They ended up going with Trey Lance. We can talk about Lance versus Mac Jones again. The reason that a lot of people thought that it'd be Mac is because they thought he'd be more pro-ready, which he probably was in 2021, but they didn't realize that it was a question of ceiling as well for the 49ers because they traded up from number 11 to number 3, and Mac Jones ended up going, I think, at number 12 that year in the draft. So it wasn't necessary to trade up for Mac Jones, which is why the 49ers weren't going to pick Mac Jones. If they were already going to take this swing, they wanted to take a swing into the future, seeing somebody like Josh Allen. Kyle Shanahan had seen Josh Allen in December of the previous year. The draft was in April. December of 2020, Josh Allen and the Bills came to the 49ers makeshift home in Arizona and lit them up. So that was fresh in Kyle's mind. He understood that Allen wasn't all too accurate in college, but was developed into a really good NFL quarterback. And he thought that Trey Lance could follow the same path and maybe even be a little faster in his development because he played at a pro-style college system in North Dakota State. Unfortunately, though, we go back to reality. And reality is that Trey Lance got hurt in that first year. They had this complex plan. It was like a 2-quarterback system, not with those two guys, with Trey Lance, one of those two guys up on the screen, and with Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021. They thought that, okay, maybe one way that we can ease Trey Lance in because he's so inexperienced, get him the game reps that he needs, but not give up our chances of 2021 success. 49ers said maybe we can alternate him and Jimmy Garoppolo. Kind of, when Joe Montana first started playing for the 49ers in 1979, Steve DeBerg was the starting quarterback. And Bill Walsh rotated Montana in situationally with Steve DeBerg. So a lot of people were scoffing at that plan in 2021 involving Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. And they're saying, oh, Shanahan doesn't mean this. He's just putting stuff on tape. You don't waste practice time. You have a very finite amount of practice time. The league doesn't allow any more than that particular window. And you have to make the most out of every rep, out of every second of that practice time. So when the 49ers went out there in late August of 2021 and literally started inserting Trey Lance in the middle of a drive, pulling Jimmy Garoppolo out, and then sending Jimmy Garoppolo back out onto the field instead of Trey Lance on a play-by-play basis, it wasn't even a drive-by-drive basis. That was the first thing that I had to write about. People didn't take it seriously back then, but I wrote about it, and then it happened in a game. It happened in that game against the Raiders, the final preseason game of 2021. Alternation of Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. And do you remember what happened at the end of that first drive? Jimmy Garoppolo ran in for a touchdown. The 49ers were planning to do that all season in 2021. They're planning to run substitution by situation at quarterback. There are even documented quotes of Kyle Shanahan talking about this. Imagine the alternate universe that we might be in had Trey Lance not broken his finger in that game against the Raiders. What ended up happening that year is that Jimmy Garoppolo obviously was the full-time quarterback. They still try to mix Lance in the first couple of weeks, but because he can throw because of the finger, they just gave that up. So Jimmy Garoppolo was the starter for the whole season, obviously dealt with some injury issues. So Lance came in with the messed up finger, but didn't play very well. So they went back very, very clearly to Garoppolo once he was healthy again. And they got it together in time that year to make it all the way to the NFC Championship game and actually have a 10-point lead against the Rams in the second half of that NFC title game. That was a fascinating year. 2021, great receiver seasons across the league. Deebo Samuel was one of them. He helped propel the 49ers. 49ers defense got better as that season went along. They came from 3-5 to 10-7. That was the first 17 game schedule in NFL history. They went into Cincinnati, the future AFC champions, and won in overtime. They went into SoFi Stadium, the future Super Bowl champions, and won in overtime to clinch their spot in the playoffs. And then they lost to the Rams a few weeks later, but they won in Dallas. They won in Lambeau. I mean, crazy season that didn't exactly follow the original plan that Kyle Shanahan had for it. He wanted both Lance and Garoppolo playing. He got Garoppolo. They got really far, and then they made it to 2022. But in getting as far as they did that year, Jimmy Garoppolo hurt his shoulder to the point where he needed surgery. They have multiple injuries. Garoppolo probably had 3 documented injuries, maybe 4 documented injuries that year. First, he had something with his calf. That's why Lance got his initial start against Arizona. Then Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, tore a ligament in his thumb when Bud Dupree sacked him in that Christmas game against the Tennessee Titans. I believe that was Thursday Night Football. And then when Randy Gregory, the future 49er at the time, Randy Gregory got to him in the wild card round against Dallas, Jimmy Garoppolo tore his shoulder capsules. So by the time that season ended, I think you can account for the 3 injuries that were documented, and he had to have shoulder surgery, and then they couldn't trade him. Because they couldn't trade him, he was still on the roster even as Trey Lance got the job the next year due to the investment in Trey Lance. And then Lance broke his ankle in week 2, so they were able to go right back to Jimmy Garoppolo, still on the roster. And then Garoppolo led them to a hot stretch in 2022, and then he got hurt. But by that season, the guy on the right in the picture by me had been drafted at the very opposite end of the spectrum, right? Trey Lance was number 3. Brock Purdy was number 262. Lance, number 3 in 2021. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, they called him in 2022. So Purdy was handed the baton at the end of that 2022 season, and he took it and he ran with it. And by the time that 2023 hit, when Trey Lance was recovered from his ankle injury, it was decided. There was no more question. This is what I wrote up on the San Francisco Standard. There certainly will be some pleasantries exchanged before and after Saturday's game. Jim Harbaugh and 49ers owner Jed York have buried the hatchet in the decade since their 2014 split. Harbaugh actually returned to Levi's 3 years ago to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the 49ers 2012 Super Bowl team. While Shanahan still has an affinity for Lance. Here's the quote. "I'm pulling for Trey," Shanahan said. "I love Trey. One of the best people I've been around, and I really hope it works out for him." Shanahan is in no mood to relitigate the past. He repeated that the 49ers took their big swing on Lance in 2021 to curb the rising costs of a star-studded roster with a QB on a rookie deal. Shanahan accepts that injuries derailed this project, and he understands that Lance, just 25, still has a chance to develop into a serviceable NFL quarterback although he hasn't posted a statistically glitzy preseason and opportunities have remained limited. Lance backed up Dak Prescott in Dallas, and he's now going to sit behind Justin Herbert with the Chargers. There's a crazy narrative out there that Trey Lance has somehow performed way better than before under Jim Harbaugh than he did under the Dallas leadership and prior to that, Kyle Shanahan. It's actually been less efficient for Trey Lance this preseason. But again, it's a small sample, and I've consistently said, and I predicted the 49ers would draft Lance in 2021. So you can't say that I thought they would go with Mac Jones instead. I really did believe that San Francisco had a vision for Trey Lance, but even from the very start, it was very clear to me that he would just need reps, rep after rep after rep after rep to shake off the inexperience. And that couldn't happen because of the finger in 2021. That couldn't happen because of the ankle in 2022. I think, Greg Papa and I were texting about this. Best wishes again to Greg right now. But we were texting about this shortly after the preseason debut. Greg said that what he thought watching Trey Lance in that Hall of Fame game, where I that was his best showing so far of this preseason. He said that he thought that Trey was back to where he was in 2021 before he broke his finger. Mechanically, comfort-wise on the field. And, if you take that, he's only 25 years old now. But if you take how he looked in that game and realized, okay, he looked like that with the 49ers in 2021 before he broke his finger in the offseason, you could see how the 49ers were really impressed early on with Trey Lance. That he's picking up the offense, that he'd be ready to rotate in with Jimmy Garoppolo over the course of that 2021 season. There was a lot of positive buzz about Trey Lance in the 2021 offseason. Now, the reason why so much of this gets buried in history and people don't really grasp this fascinating plan that the 49ers had of alternating quarterbacks, which they actually implemented before Lance gets hurt. The reason that it gets lost is because people didn't cover it correctly back then. I mean, there was complete idiocy over the course of that training camp where people would come off the practice field and say, oh my gosh, Trey Lance just hit a deep pass. He's going to start over Jimmy Garoppolo. It was never going to happen. And it turned into this war of truth versus lies. And people would leave the practice field lying about Trey Lance's performance and creating a narrative that would fit what their preconceived notion of the situation would be. When Kyle Shanahan was actually, the truth is always in a more nuanced place that doesn't get as many headlines. But I thought that any smart football observer would actually enjoy what the truth was more, which is why we covered it this way. Kyle Shanahan was telling everyone what the 49ers were planning to do the whole time. He wanted Lance and he wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to alternate. He wanted to sub the way that he subs receivers, the way that he subs running backs based on situation. He wanted to plug that into the quarterback position. One of the more fascinating experiments ever. Once again, a callback to Steve DeBerg and Joe Montana back in 1979. But it didn't work for the 49ers because Lance broke his finger. Then he broke his ankle. Then Brock Purdy happened. The rest was history. And, by 2023, I wrote this in the article as well. This is the article up on the screen. We could scroll down. We could see a little bit more of this. But by 2023, there was only one possible path moving forward for the 49ers. And this is where the actual line is. Back when the 49ers made the Lance pick in 2021, no one could have realistically envisioned Harbaugh and Lance crossing paths. The former was in the midst of a 9-year run at Michigan. The latter was beginning his journey as Shanahan's handpicked quarterback of the future. But then came the injuries. Lance suffered 2 fractures in his first 2 seasons. Brock Purdy happened too. By 2023, the 49ers had only one logical path of action. and it was to ride the stunning rise of the young QB out of Iowa State. They traded Lance to the Dallas Cowboys, where he spent the past 2 seasons. Harbaugh returned to the NFL after winning a title at Michigan to close the 2023 campaign. He needed a new backup quarterback for Justin Herbert this season, so the Chargers signed Lance. An insane reversal. And then, here, this is just so fun because I could mix Navarro Bowman and Mac Jones into all this. Sometimes it really does feel like a script, doesn't it? And for a preseason game to have these kind of storylines and this kind of stuff flying around, we don't even know if Lance is going to start or if he's going to play, right? That he needs as many reps as possible. And he's going to stop getting those reps unless Justin Herbert gets hurt after this week. And, despite all the misinformation out there, the Trey Lance has averaged only 6 yards an attempt, like 6.0 over the course of this preseason. He hasn't been very efficient. That would rank if you took qualifying quarterbacks from last season. There's 36 qualifiers based on attempts. 6 yards per attempt would rank number 36 out of 36 qualifying QBs. So Shanahan and Harbaugh, neither of them have been able to get efficient football out of Trey Lance. Now, I think that, as Greg said, Lance has looked better mechanically over the course of this offseason. I would think that might set him up for more success moving forward, but it's still about reading the defenses, playing with anticipation, playing quickly. And in order to do that, in order to develop that, I just sit here and I say, well, Brock Purdy had 4 years starting at Iowa State. He played a lot of football at a high college level, and he was able to learn on the way. And that's one of the main things that propelled him to the immediate success at the NFL level in 2022. Lance had essentially only one season at lower level FCS, North Dakota State, and he very clearly wasn't immediately ready. And now he sits here. He's 21 years old when the 49ers drafted him. Now he sits here at age 25, so he's still relatively young, but he doesn't have all that much more experience. He started a couple games here, a couple games there. But you actually need to start in this league. Yeah, it starts under your belt. It's a little like Steve Young's career, right? He wasn't getting many starts over the first several seasons because he was behind Joe Montana. And then he finally, Montana and Bill Walsh was trying to yo-yo Montana and Steve Young. The 1988 season before the 49ers went on a run when he stuck with only Montana was famous for that. And then Young sat on the bench some more in 1989, 1990. Wasn't until 1991 when Joe Montana was out for the year that Steve Young would take the reins of the 49ers full-time starter. So Steve joined the Niners in 87 after a couple of years in Tampa, and he didn't become the full-time starter until 91. There were several seasons there. That's a 4-year stretch, right? And Trey Lance drafted in 01 or 21, and now we're in 2025, same kind of 4-year stretch. Sometimes this takes longer to crystallize, and we've just now hit the point of alternate universe with Jim Harbaugh now coaching Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan coaching Brock Purdy. It is excellent, excellent stuff. I eat it up. I love it. Any questions? I've got a good little clip today. I've been out on the town today. It's been such a busy day. We decided today our strategy was just to flood you guys with videos. I think this is our 4th of the day. If you appreciate that, you could hit the thumbs up button. If you want less videos, well, then I guess just hit the thumbs down button. But, well, I don't think we're going to be doing this many most days. We're just experimenting a little bit with audience sizes and this and that and how YouTube really reacts to if you put 2 videos up back to back. It's preseason for us too, so we're just getting a gauge of the audience right now. So that's why we took the strategy that we took today. But anyway, I was out in San Francisco earlier this evening. I'm in San Francisco right now. But take a look at this. This is Chinatown at golden hour. Isn't that something? We're going to have to replay this. I don't want the banner up there. I'll take my face out of there too. I just got some really cool shots. The sun was reflecting off that building at Union Square. Just beautiful golden hour. You zoom in with the camera a little bit. Look at that biker just bombing down the hill. And then I got a little uphill shot. Chinatown, San Francisco, golden hour, beautiful city. I had a really good burger at Sam's on Broadway, which is right on the other side of Chinatown. Sam's is the truth. I guess they've got a growing collection of 49ers newspaper clippings. I think a lot of them from the 1989 season up on the wall at Sam's, donated by a viewer of this channel. He's going to remain anonymous because he wishes to remain anonymous, but you should go check out. It's almost turned into a little 49ers shrine there at Sam's Burgers on Broadway. Not too far, or right by where I took those videos right there. But in the corner, and he donated more stuff, this viewer, because he's a viewer of the show and he knows I go to Sam's. In that corner, it's like the 49ers corner, and we're going to be able to do 49ers shows from that corner. It's going to be really cool. They'll bring us some burgers. Maybe we could let you guys know when we do a show at Sam's. I think it's the perfect live location. I don't know what kind of Wi-Fi speeds they have there, but we can always go with our phone. I think that could be a lot of fun. So Sam's Burgers, good show, location for once the 49ers get on a run at some point this season. I think that's when we'll take advantage of that. The future is live events. Well, I'm glad that we're embracing the future. That makes me happy. Who do I see as potential trade candidates from the 49ers? And who do the 49ers target with them? So you saying who's a candidate to be traded away from San Francisco? Oh boy, I would say like the thinner their defensive line gets with some of these injuries, the less I think somebody like Jordan Elliott's a candidate at the very start. But this could stretch out until before the trade deadline. Look at somebody like that. So I think the Jair Brown in that secondary, that could be a true trade candidate. I think that the Jets, I don't know who they could send back. Do they still have Malachi Corley? Is he still with the Jets, Mike? We're seeing way more player for player trades in the NFL. So I wouldn't rule out something like that. How will George Kittle do this season? Well, you've got George Kittle in your picture there. Maybe that's George Kittle himself asking. He's looked awesome in training camp. He made another catch today that was just a jaw dropper. He was working against Jair Brown. And no, was it Jair? I'm trying to remember. There was a little pushing action, though, while that football was in there. I think it was Jair. And George Kittle was able to still hang on to the football and get both feet in bounds. Will Lombardi ever hold the Lombardi from a Niners win? That'd be crazy. I've held the Lombardi trophy, but I think it's a replica at Shanahan Steakhouse in Mike Shanahan Steakhouse in the Denver area. The 21 jersey, that one is in, by the way, I think your last name is Czech. Am I correct in that? Sloka, Czech. I think that seems like a Czech last name. That's cool. The 21, the Frank Gore jersey, my best friend, Colton is his name. For my birthday one year, just got me a couple signed jerseys, a Shane Leckler, that was a Raiders one, and a Frank Gore, the number 21. Too bad that we didn't do a show. I wasn't in Nashville before Raiders week because it would have been perfect. Gore, Leckler, Niners, Raiders on both sides of me. I'm going to be swinging through Nashville here for about, it's going to be a 24-hour visit to Nashville. Yeah, a quick 24-hour visit on Friday. Maybe we do something. Maybe we do one show out of the studio out there. Monster year this year for George Kittle. Yes. You should always be worried about the offensive line, protecting any quarterback. It's such an important position. I think that right now there are injury situations the 49ers are dealing with at guard. So the rookie Connor Colby has impressed the 49ers, but boy, still has some strides to make. Got back down a little too easily by Tyree Wilson on that third down. He's got to put down a better anchor. And it seems that he's learning how to play right guard now as well. He had to be a right guard today because of the Dominic Puni injury. So they also worked out guards today. I'd expect them to sign a guard potentially tomorrow because they're short at that position. I don't know when exactly Ben Barch is going to be back, but they're down 2 starting veteran guards right now, both quality players in Barch and on the right side, Dominic Puni. I know John Feliciano's interested in returning. I don't know where that stands. I'll check in with John, but I think we need a little firmer timeline for at least one of the 2 guards. I know it's a few weeks for Dominic Puni with the knee, the PCL sprain, but with Ben Barch, it's an elbow injury, and he was running around out there on the side today with a big brace on his right elbow. There we go. Czech. You know I'm Czech, right? You know I have like a dual citizenship. I got a American passport. It's the U.S. passport right here. But I also have a Czech passport, which is not on me right now, which is an EU passport of all passports. So, yeah, I recognized your name. That's awesome. Does Chase Lucas make the 53-man roster? I think he's making a very strong case right now. I have him in on the projection right now, in fact. So let's get that projection out. Why don't we get to it right now? We're calling this a special Lombardi Live late at night. Haven't done many of these lately. Haven't done 4 shows in a day lately, but I'm just building up my callus. It's training camp for me. Building up my endurance for the regular season. As you can see here, I've got Chase Lucas on the 49ers roster looking into the picture. Like he's in the picture of the 53-man. Everything to the left of this line is a guy that's projected to make the 53. So yes, I've got Chase there. We may have to cut somebody to make room. You know, maybe if Chase Lucas makes it, maybe Darrell Luter Jr. doesn't. I think Dallas Flowers is in the lead for that third cornerback spot. I think Saran Neal's on this team for special teams. Maybe Richie Grant doesn't make it. Maybe Richie Grant is the one who cedes way to Chase Lucas. Because Richie's been out with an injury right now. That's definitely not helping his cause. And then there's Jair Brown. Maybe Jair Brown is traded. So it's all contingent on numbers, right? But I do think that the way that Chase Lucas is playing. Oh. So my computer just shut down and the sound probably sounds crazy. So we are cutting out this stream right now. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining, guys.